In a quiet town in the United States, 13-year-old Daniel lived with his parents and younger sister. Like many families, they struggled with rising costs, divided communities, and the uncertainties of life. One winter evening, something unimaginable happened. Daniel suddenly collapsed at the dinner table. His parents panicked and called for help, but his heart had stopped. For nearly 9 minutes, he was clinically dead. During that time, Daniel experienced something extraordinary, something that would change not only his family but the world. When Daniel came back, he began to share what he had seen. The first thing he remembered was floating above his own body. He saw himself lying motionless on the floor, his parents crying and calling for help, and his little sister whispering prayers she had learned in Sunday school. Despite the chaos, Daniel felt no fear, only a deep sense of calm. Then, he felt a gentle force pulling him upward. The world below began to fade as he moved through a tunnel filled with warm, glowing light. He heard soft whispers around him, reassuring and full of purpose. One voice said, "You are not done yet," while another added, "Remember what you see." Daniel soon found himself in a place unlike anything he had ever imagined. Everything glowed with golden light, and an overwhelming peace filled him. He felt as though he belonged there and wanted to stay forever. But he also sensed that something important awaited him. Then, he saw a figure approaching. It was Jesus. His presence was both humble and powerful, and he radiated a pure, bright light that filled Daniel with warmth and love. Jesus smiled and said, "Daniel, you have been chosen to deliver an important message." Suddenly, Daniel began to see vivid images of Earth. He saw cities, forests, and oceans, but everything was in turmoil. Fires raged, floods destroyed towns, and people fought with each other. Tears filled Daniel's eyes. "Why are you showing me this?" he asked. Jesus replied, "This is a world that has forgotten love, faith, and unity. But there is still time. You must tell them to turn back to God and to one another. Only through kindness, forgiveness, and faith can they overcome what lies ahead." Although Daniel felt the weight of this responsibility, Jesus reassured him, "Do not be afraid. You are never alone. I am always with you." Before leaving, Jesus placed his hand over Michael's heart, and an overwhelming warmth spread through his entire being. He felt renewed, stronger than ever, and ready to face the challenges of sharing what he had seen. The visions Jesus showed Michael were unlike anything he could have imagined. Once vibrant cities were now dark and deserted. Buildings lay in ruins, streets were flooded, and people fled from relentless storms. Fires engulfed familiar places, states and cities across the United States. In one vision, a colossal hurricane tore through the southern states, leaving entire communities devastated. In another, raging wildfires consumed forests and homes, while terrified families cried out for help. "These trials are not punishments," Jesus explained. "They are calls to awaken, to rediscover faith, unity, and kindness." Michael also witnessed people turning against one another, spreading hatred and anger instead of love. Jesus warned that humanity's greatest threat wasn't external, but internal. "People have forgotten what truly matters," he said, "but they can still change." Overcome with sadness, Michael asked, "Is it too late? Can we change what is coming?" With a compassionate look, Jesus placed his hand on Michael's shoulder. "No, my child, it is not too late," he said gently. "Every challenge can be overcome. Redemption is always possible for those who seek it." At that moment, Michael's visions shifted to scenes of hope and light. He saw communities uniting after disasters, rebuilding homes, helping one another, and coming together in prayer. Neighbors who had once been strangers embraced as if they were family. People shared food, shelter, and kindness. Miracles unfolded before their eyes. In one scene, a family who had lost everything stood hand in hand, surrounded by others offering them warmth and comfort. Despite their loss, they smiled, grateful for the love and support around them. Jesus explained, "This is the power of unity. Love defeats fear, and faith bridges the path to salvation." Michael also saw hospitals where patients miraculously recovered. Doctors and nurses prayed before surgeries, and the results astounded everyone. In another vision, entire communities gathered in open fields to pray under the sky. As their prayers rose, dark clouds parted, and sunlight illuminated the land, bringing a sense of renewal and hope. "Prayer is powerful," Jesus said. "It opens hearts, transforms energy, and invites miracles." As their prayers rose, dark clouds parted, and sunlight illuminated the land, bringing a sense of renewal and hope. "Prayer is powerful," Jesus said. "It opens hearts, transforms energy, and invites miracles." Daniel was shown people changing their lives. Those once consumed by anger and hopelessness found peace through faith and forgiveness. Former enemies became friends, families reconciled after years of conflict, and lost individuals discovered new purpose. "Tell them," Jesus urged, "that each person has the power to heal not only themselves but the world. Through acts of love, kindness, and forgiveness, they can shape a brighter future." Daniel realized the destruction he had seen wasn't meant to punish humanity, but to serve as a wake-up call, a test of their ability to change. Jesus explained, "Storms, fires, and conflicts are moments of growth. They reveal the strength of the human spirit. In the darkest times, people have the opportunity to shine their brightest." Finally, Jesus reminded Daniel of the importance of personal faith. "Each soul must turn inward and reconnect with me. Faith does not mean a life without challenges, but it gives you the strength to endure, overcome, and bring light to the darkness." As the final vision faded, Daniel felt a profound sense of peace and hope. The future wasn't set in stone. It could be rewritten by the choices of humanity. Jesus smiled at Daniel and said, "Share this message with courage and love. Remind them that I am always with them." Daniel felt a deep warmth as Jesus placed his hand over his heart. "You will remember everything," Jesus said. "You will carry my love with you, even when others doubt you. I will guide you. You are never alone." Although leaving heaven was the hardest decision Daniel had ever faced, he nodded, understanding that his purpose was not yet fulfilled. As Jesus stepped back, Daniel felt himself being gently pulled away. The radiant light faded, replaced by the weight of his body. The sounds of heaven grew distant until they were gone entirely. Suddenly, Daniel jolted awake, gasping for air. The sound of frantic voices and machines surrounded him. "He's back," a doctor exclaimed. His mother wept tears of joy, hugging him tightly. Though confused, Daniel felt an inner calm and clarity. In the days that followed, he began sharing his experience. Some dismissed it as a dream, but those who truly listened felt the truth in his words. Daniel never argued with doubters. He simply repeated the message Jesus had given him. It's not too late. The future can still change. Jesus said we must love, forgive, and return to faith. Only then can we overcome what lies ahead. His family believed him wholeheartedly, seeing the change in him, a quiet strength, confidence, and unshakable purpose. Daniel was no longer the same boy who had collapsed that evening. He carried a message of faith and hope that would inspire countless others. When Daniel opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was the tearful yet hopeful face of his mother leaning over him. Her voice, soft and trembling, whispered his name as though she couldn't believe he had come back. Around them, the room was frozen in a stunned silence. Doctors and nurses stood motionless, staring at the monitor that now displayed a steady, rhythmic heartbeat. "It's impossible," one doctor murmured, his voice barely audible. He was gone. But Daniel wasn't gone. He was alive, weak and heavy in body, but clear and determined in mind. He knew where he had been and why he had returned. His mother hugged him tightly, her tears falling freely, and in a faint voice, Daniel broke the silence. "Mom, I saw Jesus." Those simple words brought the room to a standstill. The doctors exchanged glances and the nurses murmured among themselves. To some, it sounded like the confused ramblings of a child recovering from trauma. But to Daniel's mother, every word carried weight and truth. She held onto his hand and asked softly, her voice thick with emotion, "What did he say?" Daniel took a slow, deep breath and began to share. He described the tunnel of light, the beauty of heaven, and the powerful presence of Jesus. He recounted the visions of storms, floods, fires, and communities torn apart. But most importantly, he told them the message Jesus had given him. Jesus said the world can still change, Daniel explained, but we have to love each other again. We have to forgive and help one another, or things will get worse. At first, the people in the room weren't sure what to make of his words. A boy who had been dead for nearly 10 minutes was now alive, recounting vivid visions of heaven and a divine warning. Some were moved by the conviction in his voice, while others dismissed it as a side effect of oxygen deprivation. Yet as Daniel's story spread, something remarkable began to happen. Across the United States and even beyond, unexplainable events started occurring, small miracles that seemed to confirm Daniel's message. People who listened to him and acted on his words found their lives changing in profound ways. In one instance, a struggling single mother who had heard Daniel's story online began praying daily, asking for strength and guidance. Days later, she received an unexpected job offer that allowed her to support her children. "It was like God heard me for the first time," she said. "Daniel's message reminded me to believe again." Communities struck by natural disasters shared stories of resilience and newfound unity. In a town devastated by flooding, neighbors who had barely spoken before came together to rebuild homes, share food, and comfort one another. "We're stronger when we're united," one volunteer said. Daniel was right. Love can heal anything. Even skeptics began to take notice as more stories of miraculous recoveries, unexpected opportunities, and deep spiritual awakenings emerged. A man who had lost faith after the death of his wife decided to visit a church for the first time in years. While sitting in the pew, he silently prayed for a sign. A week later, he found himself surrounded by a warm and welcoming community during a service event. "It felt like I'd been asleep for years and finally woke up," he said. Daniel's words were true. God hasn't abandoned us. We just stopped listening. Social media buzzed with messages of hope, tagged with phrases like, "Change starts with us," and "Jesus is near." Churches overflowed with worshipers, and prayer groups expanded. People began sharing their own stories of transformation, inspired by Daniel's simple yet powerful message. "Jesus told me that even the smallest act of love can change the world," Daniel often said. His words resonated deeply. Families once divided by anger and resentment reconciled. Individuals trapped in fear and negativity found peace. The miracles weren't always grand, but they were real, touching lives in ways that couldn't be ignored. Skeptics, journalists, and theologians debated Daniel's experience, searching for logical explanations. Yet none could deny the profound impact his story had on people's lives. "Whether you believe in heaven or not, you can't argue with the hope this boy has given people," one journalist remarked. Through it all, Daniel remained humble. "This isn't about me," he would say. "It's about all of us coming together. Jesus gave us a second chance and it's up to us to use it."